The moment she leaned against the doorway, her eyes met his with a sharp intensity that made the air between them almost unbearable. It wasn't just a glance, it was a challenge, a quiet confession wrapped in tension. He could feel it in the way her hand lingered near his as if unsure whether to pull away or stay closer, a hesitation that spoke louder than any words could. She whispered, almost too softly for him to catch, "I love you." And yet the pause in her voice carried a strange, haunting dissonance, like a secret hidden behind the sweetness of her words. He wanted to reach for her, to bridge the gap of uncertainty, but something held him back, an invisible barrier built of past mistakes, unspoken desires, and the stubborn weight of reality pressing down on them both. He studied the curve of her smile, the almost imperceptible tension in her shoulders, and wondered if she even believed her own confession. There was a pull between them that was impossible to ignore, magnetic and yet dangerous. Every shared glance, every accidental brush of their fingers, added layers to the unspoken story they were both afraid to confront. In that suspended moment, the world outside the room disappeared. Time slowed, leaving only the heat in the air, the rapid thrum of their hearts, and the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the quiet anticipation. They both knew that nothing about this was simple. Every word and gesture carried the weight of everything they were trying to hide. Forbidden attraction hummed just beneath the surface, teasing, daring, and impossible to resist. And then she stepped back, her eyes avoiding his, leaving him with a lingering sense of yearning and doubt. He watched her go, but the question remained, burning at the edge of his mind: did she really mean what she said, or was there something darker behind that soft, whispered, "I love you"? The air between them still crackled, unresolved, and the night was far from over. He stayed frozen in the doorway long after she disappeared from sight, replaying every flicker of her expression, every tiny movement that had felt like a confession and a dare all at once. The quiet of the room pressed in around him, amplifying memories of that soft whisper, the brush of her hand, the tremor in her voice that had almost betrayed the truth. He knew she wanted something, or maybe she was hiding it, but the uncertainty made every heartbeat sharper, every thought heavier. Later, when they found themselves in the same space again, neither spoke immediately. Their eyes met across the room, and it was as if the world had thinned down to that single line of sight. He noticed the way she shifted slightly when he approached, a subtle pullback mingled with an undeniable draw toward him. Words felt unnecessary. Every glance, every pause, carried more meaning than they could say aloud. A faint smile flickered at the corner of her lips, almost mischievous, almost vulnerable, and it made him question everything he thought he knew about her. When he finally stepped closer, their shoulders brushed. A shiver ran through him at the unexpected contact, and he caught a glimpse of the same reaction mirrored in her. There was no rush, no urgency, just the tension of unspoken desire threading through every motion, every breath. Conversation came slowly, each word carefully chosen, but the silence between them was richer, full of possibilities, regrets, and dreams neither dared to name. He wanted to close the distance, to ask the questions his mind was screaming, but he held himself back. She wanted something too. He could feel it in the way her gaze lingered, in the soft tilt of her head toward him, in the small, accidental brush of fingers that felt like a promise and a warning all at once. They were caught in a magnetic pull neither could resist, but the fear of crossing some invisible line kept them poised on the edge, hearts racing, breaths shallow, every moment stretched with tension. He could feel the weight of her presence before she even spoke. Every time they were in the same room, it was like an invisible wall pressed against them both, keeping desires caged and questions unasked. He wanted to cross that line, to lean in and close the space, but something held him back. A mixture of fear, respect, and the heavy knowledge that what they both wanted was complicated. She shifted slightly, a subtle motion that made his pulse spike. Her fingers brushed his arm, barely there, but enough to set off a spark that neither could ignore. She looked up at him, eyes wide and searching, as if trying to read the truth he refused to voice. There was longing in her gaze, but also caution, a careful measurement of the risks they both knew existed. And yet, despite the hesitation, her presence felt like a promise, something waiting just at the edge of reality. They spoke in small, careful sentences, each word measured, masking the fire that lingered between them. Every pause, every glance, seemed to carry double meaning. He noticed the subtle tension in her posture, the slight tremor when her hand lingered near his. It was as if they were both balancing on the same fine line, teetering between surrender and restraint. At one point they leaned closer, just barely, but the almost touch of their faces made the room feel smaller, hotter, tighter. Fingers grazed accidentally, and a shiver ran through them both, sharp and immediate. The urge to bridge the gap was almost unbearable, yet neither moved fully. They pulled back, not out of disinterest, but because the longing itself was too intense, too fragile, too dangerous to give in to all at once. And in that hesitation, in the quiet breaths shared and eyes locked, the truth was undeniable. They were both desperate for more, but something, fear, circumstance, pride, past mistakes, kept them from surrendering. The air between them shimmered with anticipation, thick with what could be, full of questions neither dared ask, and weighted by secrets that held them both captive. Every glance, every movement, every unspoken thought added another layer to the tension, leaving the night suspended in a moment of impossible, beautiful restraint. The room seemed to shrink around them, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Every glance, every subtle shift in posture, felt magnified, charged with something neither could name aloud. He could feel her breath, soft and deliberate, brushing past him, and it sent a shiver down his spine. Words failed, leaving only the hum of anticipation and the quiet thrum of their racing hearts. She stepped closer, almost imperceptibly, and the air between them seemed to vibrate. His chest tightened as he noticed the faint quiver in her lips, the hesitant tilt of her head, the way her eyes searched his, as if weighing the risk of revealing everything in one small gesture. He wanted to close the distance, to reach out, to finally let go, but the gravity of the moment held him frozen. Then she spoke, almost a whisper, barely breaking the silence. "I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted, and the words landed like fire. They weren't declarations of love, not yet, but they carried the weight of truth, raw and undeniable. His own chest ached with the urge to respond, to tell her that he felt the same, that the restraint was tearing him apart. Their fingers brushed again, slower this time, as if testing the fragile boundary between restraint and surrender. The contact, light as a whisper, set their senses alight. Every nerve seemed awake, every heartbeat screamed. A small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at her lips, mirrored by the tension in his jaw and the intensity in his gaze. They leaned toward each other, just slightly, and for a moment the world disappeared. Then she drew back, ever so slightly, leaving him with a pulse of anticipation and an ache he couldn't name. It was a moment suspended in time, a breath held, a question unanswered, a confession that hovered between them, and a space so electrified it felt as if touching it could ignite the room. Nothing had exploded yet, but everything had changed. The rain tapped softly against the window, each drop echoing the rhythm of their hearts. The room was bathed in warm, golden light, the kind that softened edges and made every movement feel suspended in time. They stood close, almost touching, yet the space between them was electric, alive with everything they had been holding back. The quiet was thick, almost sacred, and in it, their emotions spoke louder than words ever could. She stepped closer, and the distance vanished. Their breaths mingled, slow and deliberate, a silent conversation of yearning and restraint. Her hand brushed his chest, lightly, almost a caress, and he felt the tremor of connection that had been building for weeks. Neither moved too quickly, every motion was measured, reverent, as if the moment itself demanded patience. Their eyes locked, and the world outside the room disappeared entirely. It was just them, the heat in the air, the soft patter of rain, and the way their bodies instinctively leaned toward each other. He felt the warmth of her presence against him, the subtle pressure of her hand seeking his, and in that closeness, all the unspoken words finally found their voice. Her breath melted into his, a gentle whisper that made his chest tighten. The air around them shimmered with desire, the kind that isn't rushed, that lingers and deepens with every heartbeat. Their shoulders touched, then their arms, and each graze carried the weight of all the restraint, all the longing, all the moments they had held back. They didn't need to speak. Their bodies, their eyes, their very breaths were the confessions, the admissions of everything they had been denying. Time slowed. The rain's soft rhythm, the muted glow of the lamp, the way her hair brushed his shoulder, it all became part of the intimacy, as if the room itself recognized the gravity of their surrender. In that quiet, exquisite closeness, they let go of fear, of hesitation, of everything that had held them apart. The moment was theirs, breathtaking in its elegance, searing in its subtlety, and infinitely alive with the fire of emotion. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and indifferent, painting the room in pale gold. He sat on the edge of the bed, tracing the rim of his coffee cup with one finger, feeling the quiet weight of what had happened. The night lingered in his memory like a vivid echo, every glance, every shiver, every unspoken confession, but now, in daylight, the edges were sharper. He could feel the pull of desire still humming between them, but it was tangled with uncertainty, with questions that had no easy answers. She sat across from him, arms wrapped around her knees, staring out the window. Her hair fell in loose waves over her face, shielding some of the truth he longed to read. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was charged, thick with reflection, with what-ifs, with the fragile realization that things had changed irrevocably. Was it love, or was it the need for escape? The line had blurred, and neither wanted to confront it fully, yet neither could ignore it. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, tentative, a tremor in each word. "I don't know what this means," she admitted, and it landed softly in the quiet room. He nodded, understanding, because he didn't either. And yet, in that messy, uncertain admission, there was a strange peace, a sense that they had finally acknowledged the truth of what had been simmering between them. Before he could respond, there was a knock at the door. The sudden intrusion startled them, breaking the fragile cocoon of intimacy. A messenger from her past, perhaps, or a neighbor with mundane news, something external forcing them back into reality. The room's tension didn't vanish. It shifted, layered now with the reminder that the world still existed outside this bubble of connection. Despite the uncertainty, despite the lingering guilt and questions, there was a newfound depth to the bond between them. Eyes met briefly, a shared understanding passing in silence. The night had changed something, and even if either knew where it would lead, the truth of their connection could no longer be ignored. It was messy, real, human, and entirely theirs. The evening light spilled gently through the windows, painting the room in soft amber hues. They sat together, shoulders brushing, a quiet comfort settling over them after days of tension, longing, and unspoken words. His hand found hers, fingertips entwining almost instinctively, as if their hearts had decided what their minds had yet to admit. There was no rush, just the slow, deliberate understanding that some things, once acknowledged, could finally breathe. She rested her forehead against his, eyes closed, and for a moment, nothing existed beyond the warmth of that small, shared space. His breath mingled with hers, steady and grounding, and in that intimacy, they both found a peace that had eluded them in the chaos of desire. There was no grand declaration, no dramatic flourish, just the raw, unshakable truth that they had chosen to be present for each other. And yet, the memory of the tension that had preceded this moment lingered like a faint perfume, sweet and intoxicating. Every accidental touch, every silent confession, every fleeting brush of skin had led them here, and even as the night settled around them, it was impossible to forget the journey. They laughed softly at nothing, breathed in tandem, and allowed the quiet to speak for what words could not. Whether this was love in its purest form or the gentle surrender to connection mattered little. They had crossed the threshold of restraint, embraced vulnerability, and found each other in the aftermath. The story didn't need endings dictated by fate or choice. It needed only this, a truth held in stillness, a warmth shared without conditions, and a lingering sense of possibility. Their hands remained intertwined, foreheads touching, hearts aligned, as the night wrapped around them like a soft, protective cloak. The tension, the longing, the uncertainty, it was all a memory now, a proof of what had been, and a promise of what could be. The room hummed quietly with life, and the story ended, not with a bang, but with a breath, a touch, a heartbeat.